We've got 7 different stories from 7 different media outlets, you guys. It's time for another episode of Regan's Newsround. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with another episode of Regan's Newsround, where I cover 7 different stories from 7 different media outlets. The date and time of this is the 20th of August at around 2:20 p.m. UK time. For reference, I'm recording this here as a premiere video because I'm not able to live stream for you guys on Wednesday night. But I hope you find today's show informative for those who are watching this live as a premiere. And we'll start here with this piece from The Guardian here with the headline that the Scottish Government is under fire as it brings back peak rail fares. The decision to end the year-long pilot scheme for financial reasons has been condemned by trade unions and opposition parties. So, as if things can't get worse for Scotland, you know, since what has been a terrible time for the SNP, now they're going to be bringing back peak rail fares as a means to raise more money. ScotRail is obviously run by the Scottish Government. It's not privatised as well. They've already had to make changes to the pensions, to certain pension schemes in Scotland, which is obviously already going to be frustrating for them. But now this as well. This obviously does not paint a very good picture for the Scottish Government, and obviously they will take some flack for this. But the counter argument will always be the case of, well, Labour are kind of hamstrung us. Labour have hamstrung us. They're making all these cutbacks. What are we supposed to do? This is the argument that they will come across, and one of the more clear arguments that many people, especially for those who are pro-independence, is that, well, we wouldn't be having these problems if we weren't hamstrung by Westminster. And this is what they will say. And it has been a year-long, and as it says there, it's been a year-long pilot scheme as well. And I'm sure they would have loved to have continued it on. But the reality is they're not going to, unfortunately. So Scottish ministers will reintroduce peak rail fares across the country after an experiment with flat rates fares failed to significantly increase passenger numbers. Right. So trade unions and opposition parties condemned the decision and accused the Scottish Government of presiding over a shambolic rail service and are failing to adequately tackle the climate crisis. The year-long pilot scheme to abolish peak fares was introduced as part of the Scottish National Party's power-sharing deal with the Scottish Greens. It was designed to encourage people to cut their car usage and mitigate soaring living costs. Data from the government agency Transport Scotland showed that vehicles ownership hit a record of 3.9 million in 2022, of which 82% were cars, 75% were Scottish households had access to one or more cars. Earlier this year, the UK Committee on Climate Change, an official advisory body, said Scotland's climate target was no longer credible, in part because ministers have failed to prove how they would cut car kilometres by 20% by 2030. Florida Hislop, the Scottish Transport Secretary, revealed on Tuesday that the pilot had increased rail usage by only 6.8% at the cost of 40 million, with better off passenger and frequent train users were the main beneficiaries. And she said passengers needed to grow by at least 10% to make it self-financing, and the additional subsidy was currently unaffordable given the intense financial pressures facing ministers. Right. So the actual picture here is obviously they wanted it to work, but the argument from the Scottish Government here is that because they didn't get enough people back on trains, it's not worth the cost for them. That's the argument here. As a result, peak fares will be reintroduced across all Scottish ScotRail services from the 27th of September, pushing the cost of a return fare between Edinburgh and Glasgow up to £31.40. A discount on annual season tickets and multi-buy tickets would help soften the blow, Hislop had added. The pilot had been welcomed in saving many passengers hundreds and in some cases thousands of pounds during the cost of living crisis. But this level of subsidy cannot continue in the current financial climate on that measure alone, she said. The Scottish TUC and Rail Union ASAV said scrapping flat rate fares was short-sighted and regressive. Alex Rodriguez, the Scottish Labour Transport spokesperson, said cuts to rail services and changes to timetables due to shortage of drivers had left Scots rail service in chaos, and that was partly to blame for the low take-up of flat rate fares. Now, obviously, I strongly advise, obviously, people who want probably a better insight on this is probably the YouTube channel, youtube.com/the2Davies. They'll have a show on Thursday at the time of this, so they should have a better background on this than I will. But what I will say is, obviously, anything that introduces obviously people having to pay more is obviously a bummer. But the argument, obviously, as it says there clearly, is that if they couldn't afford, if it wasn't self-financing, if it wasn't, if they were losing more than gaining, it's understandable for the government to kind of say, look, we want to introduce this, we want to keep this process, but the problem is it's costing us too much, and we can't afford to pay the bet off it. So we have to bring it back to peak rail fares, guys. That's the argument the Scottish government will make. Don't have to like it, don't have to agree with it, but if more passengers were using the rail services as it's highlighted there, then perhaps they could have kept on with it. But that is the position that the Scottish government are taking. I obviously do say that perhaps, like I said, I do think it would be less of a hassle if obviously Scotland were in more control of their finances if instead of being hamstrung by Westminster, because I do believe that always plays a factor into anything that happens when it comes to Scotland and managing their budget and finances. They always have that they always have Westminster lurking behind them, ready to take more money from them. So that is something that will always be a factor in this. But obviously, I'm sure my Scottish friends will comment down below about this more than I will. But as someone who lives in England and has to put up with these peak rail fares, it can be a right pain. And for some people, it's an absolute fortune for them. But they are fortunate enough that their railways, I would say, are much better services runs than down here in England. That is what I will say. But let me know what you guys think about this more in the comments down below. It would be greatly appreciated. So, moving away from Scotland to Wales here, of a piece here from Sky News, you guys. So, Keir Starmer vows to do everything that we can to protect jobs at Port Talbot. The government previously announced 13.5 million support for those affected by redundancies at the country's largest steel works. Now, I think the best way to save Port Talbot is to bring it back into public ownership. Take it off the private company, because the private company, at the end of the day, they're not making enough money. And if it was they just right now giving this money in support is not fixing the issue. It's not guaranteed these jobs security, and it just feels like you're waiting for things to get worse. Put it back into the public sector's hands. Guarantee the jobs and safety, and then if it's running at efficiency rate, then perhaps maybe you can sell it back into the private sector, maybe. But we need to protect our steelworks, what we have left here in the UK. We need to protect Port Talbot. We really, really do. It really, really matters. We need to, obviously, one of the things that we are not doing enough of here in the UK is building enough of our own things. We import way too much. And the last thing we want to do is losing a steel Port Talbot here is losing another steelworks. We really don't want to lose that. We don't want all these jobs going as a result of it. It's really, really important, I feel. And I'm hearing Keir Starmer saying we're going to do everything I can to protect jobs, but we heard this from Conservatives saying as well, and I just feel like that the clock is ticking. And the longer that it's in the hands of this private company, at the end of the day, what matters to them is the bottom line, making money. And if it gets to a point where they're not making money anymore, they're not going to put up with it. Even with the government, and this 13.5 million, you're just literally throwing taxpayer money at them to say, please don't go. This is literally, please don't shut down the port. That's literally what the government are doing here. He's basically bribing the private company into not shutting it down if they're not making efficient money out of it. And it doesn't sit right with me at all, guys. It really, really doesn't. So Keir Starmer has vowed his government will do everything it can to preserve jobs at the steelworks in Port Talbot. The Prime Minister was visiting South Wales, in the region where the site is based, to walk around Al's Wales for wind farm with the new First Minister of Wales, Ilan Morgan. The pair had been showcasing the government's climate credentials in the region, with Keir saying he will reap the benefits from GB Energy, the state-owned company that the government has launched to help develop future offshore wind projects. But the embrace of the green agenda has sparked concerns of job losses at Port Talbot, the country's largest steelworks, that is moving over to a greener form of steel production, which requires fewer workers. Asked about the redundancies, which could total 2,800, the Prime Minister said the government would do everything it can to help the workers. What I would... The redundancies... there's always that fear of it going completely. And obviously, nobody likes to see jobs going away. What I would try to do is obviously, rather than write people off on the jobs, the redundancy, I would try to reduce... I know nobody doesn't like what I'm about to say here, but rather than letting people go, is cut everyone's jobs times and pay down, so that people are still working some form. It just means everyone gets less pay and less work, and that way nobody loses their job. That's what I would try to argue. I can see some people saying would vehemently disagree. I would say, obviously, if people are of a certain age, then I would make them redundant. If they are of a certain age, like they're coming near to their pension age, perhaps that would be ideal. Even if they don't want to retire, I would kind of gently push them that way. I know you can't save every single job as they switch into the green form, but I still always have this in the back of my mind that at the end of the day, that their priority is the money at the end of the day. And it does worry me about the steel ports here. The jobs are never secure here, and I really think we need to protect what British businesses we have, especially ones that make our own production. This is really, really important. Asked whether he risks giving false hope to workers in the towns, he replies, "No, we're working hard on this, both the First Minister and myself jointly on this, because it's so important that we do everything we can to preserve those jobs." I really hope he's not giving false hope, because a lot of people will turn their back on Labour if so. I really hope he's not just saying that. We're working on this when I was in opposition. We turbocharged this since we've been in power. Of course, it's difficult. I think everybody understands that. Yeah, of course, everyone understands it. But we've been able to put some money down just in the last week or so, particularly with the supply chain of it. But we will do everything we can to preserve these jobs. Last week, the government announced a £13.5 million in support to help businesses affected by the Tata Steel redundancies. The package is designed to support businesses that rely on Tata Steel as their main customer, while the money also used to help workers who have been made redundant by giving them access to training and qualifications in sectors where there are job vacancies. That will help. That will help. Negotiations between the government and Tata Steel regarding the future of Port Talbot's plant, where the workforce currently accounts for 12% of the coastal town's entire population, will continue separately. Yeah, 12%. That's a huge amount. Earlier this year, Tata confirmed it would press ahead with plans to close blast furnaces and replace them with electric arc furnaces under its plans to reduce emissions and costs. It said the move will cut carbon emissions by about 85% and the UK's overall CO2 output by about 1.5%. The Port Talbot site is the UK's single largest emitter of CO2. Sir Keir's visit to South Wales comes at a time the government approved an increase in the passengers from 6.5 million to 9 million at its London City Airport, prompting criticism from environmental campaigners. I'm not going to talk about that because, I'm not going to talk about the... I'm not going to talk about that because I have that in a separate video, guys, coming. So if you just wait for that video to come out if you want to hear my thoughts about that. But as for Tata Steels, absolutely 100% agree about the premise of obviously switching more to green, and obviously significantly reduce the CO2 emissions from that. Obviously, it'll play a big step in the right direction for that, which I think is really, really good. But yeah, I just wish it hadn't been. Obviously, nobody wants to see people lose their jobs, and it should be the most minimal of impact, and everything that they can to try and help them doing that. I do want our British steel protected. I really, really do. So many industries have suffered as a result of Brexit. So many industries have and businesses and sectors have suffered as a result of the last 14 years under Conservatives. And I generally do hope when Labour say they are the party of business and working class and whatnot, I really do hope that they do that. They really try to look after these businesses and whatnot. It's easy to say it on paper and talk about it, but to actually show it is another thing. And I really think that's important, guys. And let's hope that is the case. But only time will tell on that one, guys. So the next one I got for you guys is from the BBC. It's regarding pensions. So pensioners are urged to claim as winter fuel support cut. So hundreds of thousands of pensioners have been urged to claim a pension top-up that will enable them to beat the government's cuts in energy bill support. So for those who don't know, obviously there was the cuts to the winter fuel support, not just here, but there's obviously some in Scotland as well in a separate thing. But people are, if pensioners are not aware, if you know somebody who is a pensioner and doesn't know about this and can still claim the winter fuel support, please do go and get in touch with that person. Please make sure that they are checked, that they if they can claim the winter fuel support while it's still available, please get them to do so. While every single payment really counts, because obviously we are in a cost of living crisis. Everyone knows that, and we want to make sure that everybody is covered as much as they possibly can. Obviously, there's these cuts that Labour government announced, and what's happening in Scotland with regarding pensioners is obviously not helpful in any way, shape, or form. And we need to make sure that we do everything we can to give them the support that they need. Obviously, we're not doing that by cutting away some support from them. So an estimated 880,000 low-income pensioners households eligible for pension credit currently failed to claim it, and a deadline is approaching. The government says it's worth an average of £3,900 a year, but also a gateway to other financial support such as winter fuel payments. Ministers will cut this help with fuel bills for 10 million pensioners on England and Wales this autumn, but not for those on pension credit or other means-tested benefits. The policy is expected to reduce the number of pensioners who receive the winter fuel payment from 11.4 million to 1.5 million, saving the Treasury 1.4 billion this financial year. The payment is a devolved matter in Scotland and Northern Ireland. Yeah, I believe Scotland are doing something similar. It's not the exact same thing, but there's something else. But yeah, that massive cut of 11.4 million to 1.5 billion. That's a huge amount of money. The Work and Pensions Secretary Liz Kendall said the new Labour government had been forced to take difficult decisions. Yeah, we've heard them say this before. But I'm determined to ensure low-income pensioners are supported. And what better way to support them by taking away the winter fuel payment? However, Conservative Laura Trott can't take her seriously. The Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury claimed that the government was absurdly trying to claim that it's committed to pensioners. Instead of trying to mitigate the impact of its own decisions, the Chancellor should come clean and publish the internal impact assessment so the public can truly see the damage of this policy, she added. I do agree that we should see the internal impact assessment of it. I do agree with that on that, but I'm sorry, the Conservatives really need to shut up because they're the ones who've left us in a lot of mess. It's hard for me to take anything seriously what any Conservatives say, guys. In July, the Chancellor Rachel Reeves claimed a public spending audit she commissioned from the Treasury officials received an unforgivable economic legacy she had been left. That prompted a series of decisions designed to reduce spending, including the scaling back of the winter fuel payments, which is worth between £100 and £300 for pensioners' households each winter. Pensioners whose weekly income is below £218.15 for a single person, or £332.95 for a couple, should check to see if they could be eligible for pension credit. So if you know somebody, please go and check that now. On top of the benefits, it is a gateway to support the housing costs, council tax, the TV licence and the winter fuel payments worth up to £300. The government's new pension credit awareness drive will help identify households not claiming the benefit and encourage them to apply by the 21st of December. That is the final date for making a backdated claim for pension credits in order to receive the winter fuel payment. And about 1.4 million pensioners are already receiving pension credit, but up to an estimated 880,000 households eligible for the support have failed to claim. Many incorrectly do believe they are not entitled, which have been ruled out only to savings, or say they do not like to accept what they regard as handouts. If the money is there, you should take it. So this is just a little thing here. This again, the links for all our articles from Regan's Newsround will be in the description, guys. It says here, how to make a claim. You can check your eligibility for pension credit via the government's online calculator. The link will be on there. Information is also available on how to make a claim. There's a phone line available on weekdays for those in the UK, 0800 99 1234. Guides to benefits when you qualify for what you do if something goes wrong are provided by the independent Money Helper website, backed by the government as well. Benefits calculator also run by Policy and Practice and charities entitled and Turn to Us. So on the link for this article, guys, which will be in the description, if you come down to the bottom of the page, I'll come right down to the bottom of the page, and there's all these links here, obviously, and there is a contact number if you want to find out whether or not if not yourself, but if you know somebody who may be entitled to this payment. It is worth just checking to be sure. Even if they're not eligible, it's worth looking if you know somebody, or asking that question to somebody, just to be on the safe side, guys, because we want, if there is money there to help support them, regardless of whether they feel if it's a handout or whether they should be entitled or not, they should try to claim it. They really should. If it's there, please take it, is the message that I have, to make sure it's not just about obviously ensuring that we look after the future kids, because I talk about obviously the young and the people in poverty as well, but we also want to make sure we look after all people in society, including our pensioners and senior age people. So please make sure, if you can, please do so, guys. So before I go to the next article, guys, I just want to remind you, if you haven't already, please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate it. Please share this across social media so others are notified of this video. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing, because it really does help support the channel. Just hit that subscribe button. Doesn't cost you anything, guys. But if you're a regular watcher of the channel, whether it's from shorts videos like premieres or live streams, whatever it may be, just hitting that subscribe button really does make a massive difference. And thank you to everyone who has done so. It's greatly appreciated. So this one I've got here next for you is a couple of days old, but it is an interesting exclusive that I haven't had a chance really to cover, guys. So universities are telling students to budget £92 a week on rent without a date advice. Analysis by the Eye found many institutions have not updated their budgeting pages in years, with one offering decades-old advice. So you're getting advice that's over a decade old, guys. That's not really helpful. I say not even ideal, to be fair, as well. It's really important if you are somebody, it's really important that you try to really make every single penny count. And for universities and students, it's going to get tough for them. Several UK universities are providing students with out-of-date budgeting advice on figures that are up to a decade old, the Eye can reveal. Almost every institution has information available on their websites on the amounts the students can expect to spend on groceries, including energy, bills, and entertainment, for example. But analysis by the Eye found many cases this information has not been updated since inflation sent the cost of living soaring, with students misled into how much they could actually expect to spend, as many go to university next month. Inflation hit a high of 11.1% in October 2022. While it has fallen dramatically to 2.2%, people across the country are still feeling the pinch of higher prices, with students often having very limited budgets. Experts fear the impact outdated information will have on students, particularly those moving over from other countries. So Tom Algaham, the student money expert at Save the Students, said, international students will be particularly at risk from outdated information. Unlike domestic students, they'll be far more reliant on the figures to help them understand the cost of living crisis in the UK. And prices from 2 or more years could easily be 10 to 20% lower than today. Among examples found by the Eye, a page entitled Estimated Living Costs on the University of Buckinghamshire website told students they could expect to spend £1,200 a year on food, £400 on clothing, £200 on laundry, and £800 on entertainment. But the Eye found the website was giving the exact same figures in late 2014, almost 10 years ago. Yeah, things have changed since then. Things have changed quite a bit since then. So this is the University of Buckinghamshire, who told students they could expect to spend £1,200 a year on food. Yeah, so this is estimated living costs there. Accommodation, including utilities, £5,000 to £7,500. Food, £1,200. Clothing, £400. Laundry, £200. Telephone, £400. £800 in entertainment, bar, etc. UK travel, £250. And books, £250. Yeah, I don't know what the real actual cost of a university, but I imagine some of these would not be surprised me to say the least if these were a little bit higher. A figure of 1,200 in 2024 is equivalent to around £1,606 at the moment, once inflation is factored in. So you're missing an extra £200 plus pretty much there. The university, which is one of 6 private universities in the country, said the figures are estimates. A spokesperson says it's extremely important to us that all the information is accurate and our website is updated accordingly. The illustration shows estimated living figures. Living costs are unique to each student, depending on their lifestyle. It does not say if we're going to update the web page. Yeah, it might be worth you updating it. So I'm not going to read that bit there, but you can see it's obviously saying under living expenses there. And again, food, budget households, travel, booking equipment there. It's got highlighted underneath their students choosing to live in private accommodation may be required to commit to 52 weeks contracts and therefore may need to budget for 52 weeks of accommodation cost as well. The real message I have to say on this is obviously if you are a student of any, whether you're in college or university, whatever you might be, guys, just make every single penny count. Of course, you want to live life. I understand that as well. But remember why you're going to university, why you're going to college, why you're going to these places, because you want to be successful. You want to be successful and you want to make something of yourself or the career path that you want for yourself. Make sure you're looking after your budget, managing your budget. Make sure you're looking after your pennies. Of course, if you have money left over and you want to let your hair down a little bit and relax, that's totally cool. But manage your budget is really the best thing I can say. Like literally, when you get there and you're not sure 100%, like the best way to know is obviously after one whole month, and then you'll realize where most of your money is going, and then you can manage it from there. It's about staying on top of it as well, because you really need to stay on top of it. In other examples, a page on Royal Holloway University of London website told students to expect to spend between £40 to £60 per week on food and household costs, from as little as £3,500 per year on accommodation costs based on a 38-week contract. This works out at £92 a week or £368 per month, despite data from Save the Student showing rent is by far the biggest cost for students at £439 per month on average. And Royal Holloway website showing the cheapest room available at the next academic year costs approximately £133 per week. It added students could expect to pay £300 to £450 per year on books and equipment, but none of the figures have been updated since October 2021. A source at the university said they are working to remove the figures, which are part of a very old internet system. It has more up-to-date web page displaying approximately weekly living costs for the upcoming academic year. And last year, an investigation found that 3 of the 24 prestigious Russell Group universities were found to be giving out figures that have not updated in several years. Following this, they all removed the out-of-date web pages and changed them to be more accurate. So despite this, many institutions are still offering out-of-date advice. The University of Brighton has also not updated its budgeting for student life page since November 2020. The only thing that has been changed is the projected cost of entertainment rising from £20 to £30 a week to £30 to £40 per week. This is despite food prices between March 2022 and March 2023 rising by 19.1% and household energy bills increasing by 54% in April 2022. A University of Brighton spokesperson said, "We provide a wide range of information, support and advice for current and prospective students to help them budget." Meanwhile, a page on the website for the University of Portsmouth has said the figures it provided were based on sector averages, with some variations based on local costs, monitoring by our Student Finance Centre to ensure figures accurately reflect the true cost of living in Portsmouth. A spokesperson for the university alleged the budgeting figures were changed in autumn last year, yet the Eye found the only figure that has changed since October 2021 is the one for hall fees, increasing from £100 to £175 to £104 to £182. Spokesperson said the universities aim to make the cost of living figures as accurate as possible, so we're researching average cost times this time of year, and then update our website in time for the start of the new academic year until starting September 2024. Ulster's University in Belfast, which took its web page down on Thursday after the Eye contacted it, hadn't updated its city living cost page since December 2021. It has not responded to Eye's request for comment at the time of publishing. So Ulster University is one of 5 to have not updated its website in 5 years here. So We got here Belfast, Cork, London, Derry in Northern Ireland, Dublin, Edinburgh, Galway, and Liverpool here. Of the before and after costs there. Well, not before and after costs, but obviously the cost in pounds and then the cost in euros there. Just to show reference there. According to Save to Students, rent accounts for around 2/5 of 1,078 average monthly student spend. Food, including takeaway and groceries, is the second basic expenses, totaling around £199 a month. The price of certain things, including rents, depends on where in the UK you are, with analysis finding that London's South Bank University spends £762 a month on living costs, excluding rent. 123 more than the average UK student before rent is even factored in. However, the University of St Andrews students is spending just £485 a month, excluding rent. 154 less than the national average and £277 a month less than what students are spending at London South Bank University. Despite all disparity, all prices are above what some universities are suggesting as monthly spending guidance. Mr. Adam added, we encourage all universities to review their living costs guidance to ensure all students can make informed decisions on their finances. A Department of Education spokesperson said the government recognises the significant financial pressures that students are facing, particularly during the current cost of living crisis, and would encourage them to seek support from their university where needed. Universities are autonomous institutions that are responsible for ensuring that the information, advice and guidance they provide students on their website is clear, accurate and up to date. Yeah, they need to make sure that they are continuously up to date to make sure that students are fully aware of the costs that they will be having to make for themselves. And while that is important, obviously students need to obviously manage their own budgets, and rightfully so. So it's obviously important that universities try to give them as clear guidance as they possibly can on the cost of living that they have, especially for those who come from abroad, who come to the UK. I know the numbers have been reduced, obviously, thanks to the previous Conservative government, and this current Labour government obviously making it difficult by not allowing students with friends and relatives and whatever to come over as well now, so they're making it more difficult. But it's really, really important that we make it as clear as we possibly can for them. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for students. And it's only getting harder for them here in the UK. That is for sure. It is going to be challenging for them. And I really hope they get through it, guys. I really do. I just wish the government would make things easier for them. So guys, I'm going to take a little break here to recover my voice a little bit before we go to the next couple of articles. But just before I show you the funny video, if you haven't hit the like button, please do. It really does help support the channel. Sharing, subscribing, all that stuff really does help. But if you want to go one step further, guys, you can go one step further and financially support me and the work that I do here on the YouTube channel. Bear in mind that this is my only income of my source of income is right here from this YouTube channel, guys. If you are a YouTube member, you can be a YouTube member for as little as 99p or $2.99 membership. Being a 99p may not sound like a lot, but it really makes a massive difference, and it really does support the work that I do here significantly. In doing so, you get access to custom emojis, which you can use here on the premiere videos or whenever I go live. And you can also, whenever you comment on any of my videos, you get a response to. You always get a response to me on your on any of my videos that you comment on as well. Of course, I will always give you a shout out whenever I can. Obviously, this is a premiere video, so I can't respond to you if you're watching this as a premiere and you're live in the chat now listening to this. But on live streams, obviously, I always greet all my members, and obviously anyone who's been a member is obviously greatly appreciated. And then whenever I do. I sometimes obviously do community members posts as well for you guys to. I try to give as much back here to members as much as I possibly can. If you're a $2.99 member, that's £2.99 a month. It does, which is a little bit more. You get all those benefits plus a bit more. You get early access to content, guys. So as soon as I've done content, as soon as I've uploaded it, it's available to you guys much earlier before everyone else. So you can comment, you can watch it at your own convenience before it becomes publicly available out on YouTube. So thank you to anyone and everyone who has been a YouTube member, whether it's been gifted a member or whether he's still currently a member or was a member, is no longer a member. I really appreciate everyone who has been a YouTube member. It really makes a massive difference, so thank you to everyone who's done so. Unfortunately, the membership has dropped quite significantly since last recorded, I'm afraid, but that, you know, some people, it's tough for some people financially, and I totally understand that. So if you can't financially support me, best way to do that, if you can't financially support me and you're struggling, that's totally cool. Best way to do it, hitting the like button, sharing across social media, subscribing, watching the videos a bit longer. It doesn't cost you anything, but it does make a massive difference, and it improves the algorithm, and it helps grow the channel, guys. So thank you to everyone and anyone who has done those things. It is greatly appreciated. So I hope you guys enjoy this funny video. It's a classic one here from Exploding Heads. It's some guy from Portsmouth. I know you haven't heard from him in a long time, guys, but I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Hold on, let me just make sure. I want to make sure you guys can see the text as well. So hope you guys enjoy this one.
Colin from Portsmouth is on the line. Hello, Colin.
I'm disgusted, Anthony. Absolutely disgusted.
Right.
That charlatan draping the St George's flag around his shoulders in a hollow attempt to prove his plastic patriotism, using nationalistic symbolism in a cynical bid to win votes.
What, Lee Anderson, Rishi Sunak, Colin?
No, Keir Starmer. It makes you sick
Yeah.
to look at it. Telling us we should all be proud of this country. What is there to be proud about?
Wow.
The amount of fraud, the amount of corruption going on by the elite.
I know, Colin. Michel Moan, that MP who used taxpayers' money on his own private medical bills and Brazilian male escorts. It's
Which
appalling.
pales in comparison to what Angela Rayner is doing.
Of course.
She's possibly owing £1,000 to HMRC.
Yes,
And
yeah.
Keir salutes the St George's Cross without even knowing what a woman is. I ask you. Boris Johnson's career didn't die for this.
Would you rather he didn't love his country, Colin? Is that what you want?
His country? What's he done to it? Kigali is safer than London. Thank you, Keir and Sadiq Khan.
But then that's good for the Rwanda deportations, isn't it? If Kigali's safer?
Keir has desecrated the flag by associating himself with it. We
Yeah.
need to ban politicians using it for their own populist purposes.
Absolutely.
Richie, I'm begging you, whatever he does with St George Union, you double it. We won't let our symbols be appropriated by the enemy, at least until you leave office and up sticks to California.
Yeah.
Anyway, mate, thanks for having me on. Love to the family.
Love to the family, Colin. Love to the family.
I've made some AI art of Penny Mordaunt and a lion. Do you want to see it?
I do, actually.
Do you want to see it, guys? Do you want to see it? Not me personally, but if you want to see it, yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed that classic one from Colin Portsmouth, an old one there. Man, we do miss him. We do miss Colin from Portsmouth here on the channel. We used to do it quite a lot, but yeah, he hasn't done content for a while now. I don't know, maybe he's ran out of ideas to talk about. I don't know, guys. So this one I've got for you here is from The Independent. An interesting one here. Give pupils ice lollies in science lessons so they have essential experience. A new primary science curriculum should be introduced in schools to reduce inequalities for scientific associations have said. Excuse me. So, I'm no scientist, and maybe some of you are scientists, but I don't see the logic of ice lollies being introduced unless you intend to eat them. And I would be more tempted to lick the ice lolly than to actually use it for science experiments. That's just me. Maybe some of you guys will agree with me as well, for those of you who've had ice lollies. I'm not quite sure how to respond to this one. But I saw this headline and I just thought, let's have a gander. Let's have a read into this, you guys. So, I'm sure there's a seriousness to this for some extent. So, primary school pupils should be given ice lollies in science lessons to ensure learning is grounded in engaging real-life experiences, a coalition of science associations has said. Okay. So a new primary science curriculum should be introduced which offers a series of essential experiences in class so all children have opportunities to relate to scientific concepts, according to a report. The Royal Society of Chemistry, Institute of Physics, Royal Society of Biology and Association for Science Education have published recommendations for reforming the primary school curriculum in a bid to reduce inequalities in science, technology, engineering and mathematics as STEM education. Eating ice lollies, playing musical instruments and planting vegetables are some of the listed experiences which they suggest schools should have by age 11 through science lessons in primary schools. Children with limited first-hand experiences are undeniably at a disadvantage, the report suggested. This is 100% true. if you are a child that doesn't have these opportunities that some other children have had, playing musical instruments or planting vegetables or having that garden experience that some other kids have, this is 100% a great idea, if so, especially for those who've never had that experience. Still not sure whether eating ice lollies is going to help, but maybe it's because they might get... I'm assuming it's because obviously you get brain freeze from having ice cream and ice lollies, and then you just read the reactions to it or something. Maybe that's just me, but it said this is a fundamental equality issues and the provision of rich essential experiences for children, particularly in the early and lower primary years, will go in some ways in addressing this. These concrete experiences form a basis of which children can draw evidence from these ideas, making children ready for more abstract learning they will encounter at secondary school. The government launched its curriculum and assessment review last month, which will be chaired by education expert Professor Bakey Francis. The Department of Education, DFS, said the views of experts, parents, teachers and leaders will be pivotal to the recommendations of the review, which are due to be published in 2025. Alzim Okan, a teacher in education policy specialist at the Royal Society of Chemistry, said, one of the recommendations for chemistry is that by the age of 11, all children should start to understand how temperature works and how heating and cooling can change things. What better props there for a teacher than to help explain them this than an ice lolly? Question for those who are outside the UK. Have you been given ice lollies in your science lessons? Answers on a postcard, please. Essential experiences like this promote learning on a personal level, so we believe it should be part of their curriculum. It's a cheap solution and will allow children the opportunity to develop their scientific confidence, whether their background, and this is exactly what the curriculum reform should be aiming to do. Not all children have access to a garden or school field. We want children to experience the world around them while empowering teachers to bring science into everyday activities. If you make lessons fun for kids, they are more likely to be more engaged in your school lessons. If you make them fun, it can get more engaging, more excitement for them. Engagement is key, and getting kids positive engagement from children makes it easier for the teachers and makes it better for you to be able to teach the children as well. Positive engagement. Charles Tracy, Senior Advisor at Learning and Skills at the Institute of Physics, said many children enjoy making noise, but harnessing this in the classroom can help teach the basics of concepts such as pitch and volume. And we want to help review the team to make the primary science curriculum as inclusive as possible. We are recommending that teachers should be supported to bring global, historical and social context into the science lessons, that they should build science capital equitably by giving all students access to genuine scientific experiences that are currently the preserve of a lucky few. Lauren McLeod, the head of education policy at the Royal Science of Biology, said, by celebrating green spaces, growing vegetables in the classroom and visiting local garden centres, children can experience the life cycles of living things and be involved in making healthy and sustainable choices. Not all children have access to garden school fields, and we want children to have that. Yeah, we just read that already. Sarah Hannon, head of policy of School Leaders Union, the NAHT, said, using real-life scenarios and objects can help bring science to life for pupils, and this happens in schools across the country, even under the current curriculum. What is needed, not a whole new STEM curriculum, but to build upon what works best and a reduction of the current bloated program. Time is currently a big issue. It's a big issue, and there is scope to improve the experience of pupils and teachers by streamlining content. The curriculum and assessment review must take in coherent of a collective view of the whole curriculum, creating the space and time needed for schools to make it relevant for the pupils, improving engagement and fostering a real love of learning. Pepe, General Secretary of the Association of School and College Leaders, the ASCL, said, making school reliable to children's real-world experiences in a hands-on way is an excellent approach to learning and something that primary schools are pretty good at doing. The big challenge for the government's curriculum review is going to be making sure that there are enough times for science alongside English, maths, and everything else that primary schools have to deliver. At the moment, timetables can be quite congested because of the range of demand on schools. A DfE spokesperson has said high and rising standards at the heart of the government's mission to break down the barriers and opportunities to give every child the best start in life. The curriculum and assessment review will bring Sorry, just saw my phone. Will bring together leading education experts, leaders, and staff to consider how to ensure young people get the opportunity to access a broad and balanced curriculum, as well as a crucial and life skill necessary to succeed both in the workplace and throughout their lives. We want to make science fun. I remember I remember my science lessons. I actually do vividly remember my science lessons, and they were not fun. They were not fun, guys. I remember them. I remember there were times where they were cool, where they were using the Bunsen burner and playing a bit, but there was a lot of it was also a case of just looking at the whiteboard, looking at your folder, and writing things down as well. And it was more trying to take in the knowledge from the teacher as opposed to actually watching it and seeing it and trying it out yourself, sort of thing. And that needs to be more. We need more of that. I think that's really, really important, guys. I really hope we do get more of that. I think that's something that can make a massive difference. Obviously, I can't speak for other schools, but yeah, I'm sure some of you guys probably have something like that in some of your other schools. But yeah, make science fun, just like any education. If you make education fun, it becomes easier for kids to learn from. I think that's a given. I know it's a challenge for some teachers because obviously they have a lot on their plates as it is. It's an amazing job for them to be teachers, but it is also an extremely challenging one. And I really hope that they can make it work for kids of the future. I really do, guys. So I've got two more articles for you guys here. This one I've got is an opinion piece, not so much on the UK, but more on a global scale, to remind us of the crisis that we are in when it comes to the climate. This one from Open Democracy. Climate crisis means the future look grim, but there are reasons for hope. A world of devastating weather events, unlivable cities, gross food shortages, and global marginalisation beckons. So what are the reasons for hope? Well, before I talk about that, just my piece on climate change. I think it's, I do try to, I don't talk a lot about climate change or do try to do specific videos on climate change because unfortunately I don't have the viewers, guys. I wouldn't be surprised if people literally switched off because this is a piece on climate change. Some people just don't want to talk about it. They don't want to accept that there is a crisis, and we need to deal with it. But let's read this opinion piece anyway from Paul Rogers here. So the recent wildfires in Greece started on Sunday, the 11th of August in Vangelis, 35 kilometres north of Athens. By the time they were brought under control 3 days later, they had reached the capital suburbs, having burnt through 25 acres of forest. Still, the fires fortunately did not get fully to Athens. It was a close call. Similar extreme weather events, whether wildfire, drought, storm, floods, or heat domes, are now seen on near daily spaces somewhere around the world. And they are often intense than even a couple of decades ago. They are the most visible elements of climate change shift into climate breakdown. We are also seeing clear worldwide changes. Last year was exceptionally hot, the hottest year since accurate weather records were first kept in the 1880s. But this year is perhaps more worrying. 2023 was an El Nino year, one at which the sea surface temperatures warmed by 0.5 degrees above the long-term average. It's a climate phenomenon that occurs every 2 to 7 years and leads to temporary air temperatures increasing across much of the world in those years. The problem is that El Nino has been fading since February, and yet the global pattern does not show the anticipated easing of temperatures. Instead, we are seeing the opposite. 15 national heat records have been broken so far this year, as have 130 monthly national temperature records. As Costa Rican climate historian Maximo Heller told The Guardian, it's far from dwindling with the end of El Nino. Records are falling even much faster pace compared to late 2023. In fact, June this year was the 13th month in a row to set a monthly global temperature record, according to the EU's Copernicus Climate Change Services, whose EAR-5 satellite suggested that 22nd of July was the hottest day ever recorded on Earth. The World Meteorological Organization, meanwhile, have reported that at least 10 countries have already recorded temperatures above 50 degrees this year. 50! I remember last year I talked about India. I think it was last year. Yeah, it was last year. I think India had like temperatures as high as 47 at one point. I struggle when we reach above 30. I struggle if we go anywhere near 30, anywhere near the 30 mark. I struggle. And in some parts of the world, they're above 40, even above 50. How are the people supposed to live in those climates? It's impossible. And people wonder why there's migration on such a high level than ever before. The implementations are clear enough. We are heading for a global disaster at a level frequently warned out, but even more frequently ignored. Whether by politicians, business leaders or others, while the fossil fuel industries and countries that export oil, gas and coal continue to argue the problems, that is grossly exaggerated. More than 50 years ago, economic geographer Edwin Brooks, in a much-quoted remarks, warned of a crowd go-to planet of massive inequalities of wealth, buttressed by stark forces, yet endlessly threatened by desperate men in their global ghettos. His warning focused on economic inequalities that were made before the full impact of the climate change was apparent, and yet is more timely than ever. The future does look grim, a world of devastating weather events, unbelievable cities, gross food shortages, mass migration, and global marginalised beckons. The type of avoiding this dystopia future is huge. 4 years ago, a UN report identified the need to decrease carbon emissions by 7% a year until 2030 to avoid the worst impact of climate breakdown. They are still rising, and there are still need now for an annual reduction of at least 10%. It is a predicament that will require a third social transition. The first was the farming revolution with over several thousand, and the second was the industrial revolution, which started close to 4 centuries ago and is still underway. The third will be learning to live within the limits set by the capacity of the world's ecosystem to handle human activity. Initially, by preventing climate breakdown, we must achieve in mere decades. But there are some signs of hope. The first is that climate science has come on by leaps and bounds in the past 40 years, and there is much greater confidence in its predictions. This means intergovernmental panels, which have tended to be overly cautious but not exaggerating the impact of the climate crisis due to a need to work in consensus. We will be able to be far blunter in their statements. Then there is the evidence of just about everywhere that climate breakdown is happening. The third reason is that two more will combine to aspire to more activities, both young and old, to act. Many are willing to engage in a non-violent direct action despite elite determination to maintain the status quo through the harsh legal measures. So, I'm just while I'm reading this, it's got me thinking that when is the breaking point coming, guys? When is the reality going to kick in? When is the reality going to come in when people realize is that we need to stop? There's going to be that point where it's going to be like, we can't keep doing this anymore. We can't keep doing this anymore. When is that? When are we going to hit that point? How long are we going to keep hitting that point? When are we going to hit that point? And I think that's a really thing that's been crossing my mind as I'm reading this, guys. I don't know when, but at some point we're going to hit it. And I feel like so many more people need to die before we realise it. And that's the sad reality. There is a fourth reason for hope. The extraordinary way rapidly improves technology means that so often and increasingly much cheaper to use renewable energy than relying on fossil carbon energy sources. Rapid and rational decarbonisation is possible and is starting to happen on a near global scale, but must be proceeded very much faster. Global net zero needs to be achieved by 2040, not 2050, and that means richer states must aim for net zero by 2035 while providing funding to speed up the process right across the global south. It is a huge task, but that is the way to prevent climate breakdown. It doesn't look very good at the moment. To put into a wider context, 3 tasks face us all. The first is the most urgent, coming to terms with the environmental limitations. The second is the evolution of the world economy to ensure a far more equal sharing of what we have. and the third is responding to security matters without depending on the early use of military force. It's a transformational task, but thanks to the immediality of climate breakdown, there isn't really any alternative. Lucky for now, there is time to do it just. A lot of people are confined to this belief that it is too little too late yet to fix the climate crisis. But that's what some people's views are. But it doesn't mean it is. It is that viewpoint for some people. I still have some hope. I still have hope that perhaps it may still turn around, because there are still lots of people out there consistently every day, hundreds of thousands, hundreds of organizations and millions of people out there who are fighting every day to remind people of the crisis that we are in. Sparked by one little girl telling world leaders how vile they are. I'd like to think, that it was the spark of something, but it doesn't appear to have been the case, guys. But we'll have to wait and see. So, guys, I've got one more story for guys before I wrap things up. This one is from Byline Times. So, rushed airport sell-off sparks anger as councils push through privatisation to plug shortfall. What's this all about, Regan? So, concerns is growing over the Conservative-led council opaque plans to privatise Cornwall Newquay Airport, and it's part of a bigger picture across England. Now, I'm assuming that this is tied to councils struggling to make ends meet and to balance their budgets. And, as it says there, to plug their shortfalls because they're not making enough money. And with the wait that everyone is sitting to see what the government are going to be doing come October, obviously that's it's not helping. I know we're obviously seeing many councils are selling up very valuable things in order to keep afloat, and it's a horrible situation to say the least. So let's read into this. So a potential privatisation scandal is underway in the southwest as Cornwall Council plans to effectively give away 650 acres of publicly owned land as part of a planned sell-off of Newquay Airport. An audio recording of a secret council meeting about selling the airport has been leaked, which suggests a deal codenamed Operation Corduroy is underway to privatise Newquay's airport by the 31st December. The council-owned site is the main commercial airport for Cornwall. On August the 1st, the local authority announced that they started an exclusivity period to negotiate with a potential commercial partner to run and manage the Cornwall Airport, Newquay, and the land around it. It is the latest in a wave of sell-offs that is happening across England, often without much scrutiny or public fanfare. The sale will come just months before the May 2025 council elections in the county, which would see the Conservatives routed off from office. The land giveaway is controversial, as the proposed deal involves a so-called special proposed vehicle, company taking 90% of ownership, with taxpayers retaining just 10%. Cornwall Council will effectively give away the 650-acre airport estate to the deal to offload the £4.5 million annual cost that incurs running it. £4.5 million. The new partners want a legal charge over the land to secure loans for future development, according to the local outlet Cornwall Reports. Cornwall Council's Chief Executive Kate Connolly suggests using the so-called super pink papers to hide confidential information on the deal from public sight, and proposed a guarded reading room for sensitive documents, the outlet have reported. Conservative cabinet members, councillors Lewis Gardner and David Harris, are understood to be leaving the privatised efforts for Cornwall's Newquay Airport. But the decision is opposed by every Cornwall MP. Lib Dem MP for St Ives, Andrew George, told Byline Times, fundamentally opposed to any public sector fire sales involving loss of control or freehold at this time. The present administration, I fear, will use capital receipts to plug up revenue shortfalls. And that will make such a double a felony. All 6 Cornish MPs have written to the council to call for full transparency over the fire sale and a rethink in a joint Labour Lib Dem letter. St Autrol and Newquay Labour MP Noah Law added, myself and other Cornish MPs have made calls for transparency around the process and for ourselves and for the public to have ample time to study whether this is the right deal for the public, who are the ultimate beneficial owners of the airport site and the 650 acres of the prime Cornish land which surrounds it currently. The potential buyers are Astronaut Asset Management LPP, described as specialist asset managers of airports in the UK and mainland Europe. In July, Cornwall Reports noted that the council's top lawyer rejected a bid allowing more extensive scrutiny of the privatisation plans for Cornwall Newquay Airport. The council claims scrutiny is premature, so no specific proposals have been accepted, only a preferred investment partner identified. A so-called land utilisation blueprint for the airport is being prepared but won't be made public until mid-September, Byline Times understands. The public would then have 2 weeks to review the plans before they are discussed by the council cabinet on the 1st of October. Negotiations for the sell-off will conclude on the 31st of October, according to reports. Cornwall Council Conservative-run cabinet is reportedly expected to unilaterally agree to hand over the airport to a new joint venture despite call for a full council debate. The Cornwall Chamber of Commerce disputes the council claim there has been adequate consultation, stating there has been zero consultation with the business community. So they're trying to do this all basically behind hush-hush, behind closed doors, so that you guys don't know anything about it. The plans also lack cross-party support, as many as 25 councillors agreed a recent request to call in the privatisation project as more extensive council security. Newquay Green Party councillor Kate Larson, who has been partially briefed on the plan, said, I'm not personally a fan of the expansion, but certainly the land should better utilise, that we shouldn't lose money at the airport. I'd rather they just charge a frequent flyer surcharge and then puts the funds raised into improving the train stations, trains, bus connections. Something needs to be done at the airport, but with a lot more transparency. Cornwall Council portfolio holder for the economy, Councillor Lewis Gardner, said earlier this month that is the next step in a rigorous process and means an exciting opportunity to introduce potential significant new fundings into Cornish economy. Providing the long-term economy stimulus in the area needs and ensuring value for money for the Cornish residents come a step closer. The Cornwall Newquay Airport is so-called enterprise zone guarantees tax firms to break operations within it. Kat Hobbs, director of pro-public ownership group We Own It, said the airport sell-off and land giveaway was disgraceful. The airport and the land belongs to the public. You don't just hand them over to private developers with only 2 weeks of consultation. Councils are facing bankruptcy and financial shortfall following cuts around 50% of their budgets from central government since 2010 and have led to a wave of recent sell-off. Byline Times will be publishing more examples shortly. More examples are coming from Byline Times, guys, but this absolutely shocking. Absolutely shocking. And for those in Cornwall who rely on that airport or use that airport, who knows that airport, I hope this does not come to pass, and I do hope that this is challenged, and I hope this is stopped. Most importantly, stopped, because you've got to have consultation. You've got to have engagement with the constituencies in the area, with the people. You can't just do this behind their backs. It's really out of order. I do wonder how much legality they have in doing this. I do wonder it. But it does feel like I tried to selling it off just to try and raise funds. But I understand the cost of maintaining it. I understand that cost. You know, £14 million is a lot of money for £4.5 million annual cost is a lot. I understand that. I understand that situation. But doing it behind the backs, it's just no. Absolutely out of order. And I generally hope it puts a stop to it, guys. I really, really do. But this is the cost of living. But we are in a cost of living crisis, as you guys are aware. Councils are already struggling as it is. And the government needs to do something to help them. They really, really do. And the sooner they do, the better for everyone. So, guys, we've reached the end of Regan's Newsround. What did you guys think of the stories that we covered today? We covered quite a few various topics, from Scotland's rail fare to Sir Keir Starmer wanting to save Port's steelworks, pensioners, universities, pupils and ice lollies, guys, climate change, and then obviously what's happening here in Cornwall Newquay Airport. Let me know your thoughts about all these stories and more down in the comment section below. What do you guys think of them today? What did the gang think just before we head out? Did you guys find it interesting? Remember, guys, this is Ollie. Pingu here is the penguin, and Cash Dummy behind. They are the mediators and watchers from behind. We always have the orb and the lava lamp. It's very, very hot, by the way. I've touched it. It's actually really, really hot. But yeah, they're always here, guys. I really do need to find a better way of showing you guys them more often. But yeah, they're always here, guys. So I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who's watched. Thank you, guys, for all your comments and feedback. It's greatly appreciated. I will be live streaming, hopefully, on Thursday evening for you guys. This has been just a reminder before I head out. This was recorded on Tuesday at around 2:30 in the afternoon, just for reference for people who want to know. But thank you for everyone who's watched this. Let me know your feedback about all of this on Regan's Newsround in the comments below. But just before you go, if you haven't already, please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate shares across social media so others are notified of this video, and subscribe because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to go one step further, financially support me and the work that I do here, you could do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p, or join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.